What is going on, everybody? Julio here. And in today's lesson, you're going to learn how to build a clone of the Discord Nitro page using HTML, SAS, and a little bit of JavaScript. Now, for starters, everything is not going to be completely accurate, like the fonts, and that's because Discord uses premium fonts that you have to pay for. Then this particular section right here, I thought it would be another video, but in fact, it's an SVG that is animated. And when I inspected the element and noticed that it was like 4,000 lines long, I was just like, ain't nobody got time for this. So that's why you're getting the blue background. But other than that, it looks exactly the same. And if not, it's just like pretty close. Looking at the responsive view, this is how it looks on mobile phones. If we, for example, click on the navigation here, click outside of it, it can close. If we try to scroll, it's not going to scroll. So most of the features are going to be there. And if we make it larger, everything is going to adjust, as you can see right there. Same right here for this particular grid. So yeah, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. If you enjoyed the video and found it useful, make sure you give it a like. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions. But other than that, let's jump right in. Alright, so for those of you that want to follow along with me, I'm going to be placing a link in the description below where you can get the starter files as well as the completed files, just in case that you run into issues. So let me just give you guys a quick overview. So here you can see that I have a lot of files for a project as small as this one. Technically, you don't need all that, but it's kind of like a habit for me. So I'm just doing it this way anyways. Plus it keeps everything more organized. Some of the files are going to be missing here because I'm going to be creating them later on. But once you get the starter files, all the files are going to be included. And I did include certain partials here. That's going to be for the fonts, the index, which is going to basically be inside of every folder. And that's just going to be forwarding the other partials so that we can use them later. But here I have all the variables all set up just so that we can save time. As you can see, it's just colors and then font sizes as well as responsive typography. And here we have the number of columns since Discord actually has its own little grid system. And then here we have the media queries, which is something that I'm going to do as well. I'm going to be making the project responsive as we go, as opposed to waiting until the end. And then same deal here for the base styles. So this is just going to be the reset. And here in the typography, which is something I included already, we're going to have some styles that is going to be typography specific. So if you're a beginner, now here's how you can compile your SAS using Visual Studio Code with an extension called Live SAS Compiler. If you're using something like NPM and some other like NPM module to compile your SAS, that's fine too. It doesn't really matter. But this is mostly just like geared towards beginners. So what you're going to do is here in the extension tab, you're going to look for Live SAS Compiler. And the first option was the original one, but it's not being maintained anymore. So the one that you want to get is going to be by Glenn Marks. This one is basically the same as the other one, except that it's up to date. I already installed this, so just go ahead and install it if you haven't already. And then you're also going to need live server. If it doesn't show up here on the side, just look it up. It's going to be the same deal. Live server. And that's just going to allow us to launch a development, as you can see, local server with the live reload feature, which makes things a lot simpler since you can see the changes as they're happening live. Again, I already installed it. Luckily, you don't have to do anything here, but going back to the main file structure here so that I can show you how I'm going to basically set the path for the compiled CSS. So what you're going to do now is hit Control-Shift-P on your keyboard, and you're going to type in Open Settings, and then you want to grab the Preferences, Open Settings, JSON. And these are going to be settings for your Visual Studio Code editor. And this is basically where you would have your live SAS compile settings, but obviously if you haven't done this before, you've got to set them up manually. So let me just delete this so that I can just demonstrate how it's going to work. So you're going to find the last setting. So for example, here, the last setting is going to be this one. You're going to separate it with a comma, and now you can just use quotation marks. And once you start like typing live SAS, you're going to get some recommendations. So you're going to click the one that says live SAS compile settings formats. And that's going to give you something similar to what I had before. So the format here, it's set to expanded. So that's going to give you the normal CSS. You can also change it so that it's minified and so on. I'm not really going to get into a lot of details when it comes to that, since the point here is just to showcase how you can specify a safe path for your compiled CSS. So here we're going to use again the quotation marks. And notice that I have a main folder, and then I have an assets folder, and inside of there I have a CSS folder. This folder is where I want to compile my CSS to, so I have to specify the path. So here I'm going to start with /assets and then CSS. And that's pretty much all you have to do here. So now let me just undo everything so that I can go back to my original settings. And notice that the safe path is still the same. If you're following along with my projects, it's going to be the exact same thing every time. But if you're doing your own thing, obviously you're going to have to change this path. So now that we have that, we can just come down here and notice that there's nothing here in the CSS folder. And we're going to click the button that says Watch SAS. And as you can see now, the files are generated. So the last thing that we have to do here, just to test that everything is working. So for example, my abstracts folder, here I have the fonts, partials, index, and whatnot. So notice, as I mentioned, I'm going to have an index where I forward all of my other partials. So that's going to allow me to basically use this entire folder as a reference later within my main styles.scss file, as opposed to having to type in the complete path. So we come here, for example, if I want to include my abstracts and base folders, we're going to do the same thing for the components and layouts later on. So here we just specify that we want to use, and then the abstracts folder. Now notice that it's going to compile with an error, and that's because of this / here, because it's going to expect something more. But since we're using @forward here and we have the index, we can just get rid of this /. And now it's going to compile successfully. So if we go back and check the main style sheet here for the CSS, notice that the CSS for our variables here and fonts are now being included. So it's going to be the same deal if I include my base, like so. If we go back, now all the base styles are being included here as well. So that's how easy it is to compile your SAS to CSS using the live SAS compile extension. So with that out of the way, what we're going to do is just close all of this. We're going to revisit it later. Right now, we're just going to focus on the HTML markup for the header, navigation, and so on. So the first thing now that we're going to do is go inside of the body, and I'm going to add just some white space as we go along as well, just so that it's more legible. So we're going to have a div that has the class of background, if I can actually type it correctly. And inside of here, this is where everything is going to live as far as the header, navigation, and the showcase. And just so that we can get this all set up and we can see the changes as they're happening, what I'm going to do is just open this project here on the side. I'm going to make this smaller as well here. And then I'm just going to make it the same, well, not the same size, but just like line it up. And now we have the project side by side. I'm also going to open up the completed project just so that we can also use it as a reference here. So this background that you see here as the gradient, this is going to be the background div, and then everything is going to be inside of it as far as the header, navigation, and the showcase. So the first thing after, well, I keep saying the first thing, but technically I've already done many first things. So the second thing after having the background, what I'm going to do is add in the header. And the header is just going to have the navigation with the logo, button, and so on. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and add a header that has the class of header, even though we don't really use it in this situation. So let me just actually just do the bare header. And again, let me just give myself some separation there. And this should be fine. Just so that everything is going to be more readable for you guys and not too cluttered. So the same thing now, I'm going to use the nav element and I'm going to give it the class of nav as well as a class of container. That is just going to keep everything consistent as far as padding left and right and a max width as well. And then in here, I'm going to have the logo, and for this, I'm going to use an anchor tag. So we're going to be using the BEM methodology here, which is block element modifier. And basically the way that you set this up is that you have a main here, the block, and then you're going to have an element that is based on this block. So it's going to make nesting a lot cleaner later on when it comes to our SAS. So here we just do a double underscore and now we do a name for it. So in this situation, this is going to be the nav logo. And we can just point this back to the index.html. And for the content of the logo, we're going to be using an SVG. And we're not going to be including as an image. Instead, we're just going to include all the SVG code. And we're just going to paste it in there. So I'm going to be including all the SVG code that we need for every single SVG that we use. So I think I'm just going to include it on a separate text file or maybe even within the HTML markup with a small label just to let you guys know what it is. So this SVG itself is going to have the class of nav logo and then image, as you can see there. So just pointing that out. And the fill color is going to be white. Obviously we can't see it, but it's there, but that's because it's blending in. So once we set up the logo here, what we're going to do is go underneath of the anchor tag. And let me actually just minimize this right there. And underneath of the anchor tag, what I'm going to do, and I guess we don't really need a space there since they're both tied together. And what we're going to do now is add in a div, and this div is going to have the class of nav menu. Inside of here, we're going to have a secondary logo. So this is going to be a black one. When we open up the navigation, we're going to have this icon here for the X, as well as the navigation items, and then finally a button. So it's going to be the same deal here. I'm actually going to grab the SVG code for this one as well. Well, this is going to be an anchor tag, so I'm just going to grab it. Let's make sure I grab the whole thing. Again, I'm going to be including everything. Essentially, it's the same as the last one. The only difference this time is that this logo right here has a secondary class of nav menu logo. And that's because we're going to be using this particular class to add some separate styles here within the nested nav menu. And then here, everything is going to stay the same, except for the fill, which is going to be black. So if we go check it out, notice that it's now visible. So again, let me just minimize this so that we have a little bit more room. And the next thing that I want to do is add the divider, which is barely visible, but it's there. And this divider is going to be a div that has the class of nav menu divider, like so. So we're not going to be doing anything in there. It's just going to be the div by itself. And now we can just go ahead and lay out the markup for the nav list, which is going to be all of this. So we're going to be using a UL that has the class of nav list. And then I'm going to be doing the nesting inside of this list. So what I'm going to do is have an li with a class of nav list item, like so. And then inside of there, I'm going to do the same thing for the anchor tag, nav list link. And I'm going to use a placeholder here. And then since we already have the basic structure now for the LIs, what we can do is just duplicate it down below as many times as we need. So now we can just go ahead and add in data. So download, Nitro, then we have safety, support, blog, and careers, like so. So now that we have that, the next step is going to be adding in the button for the X. And we're going to be doing that outside of the UL. Obviously, we're going to be using the button element, applying a class of BTN, a class of BTN action, as well as a class of BTN close. So these that have the double hyphen, they are called modifiers. So the modifiers, the job that they do is basically modify a certain element by applying separate styles. And in here, we're going to have another SBG. So let me just copy that, paste it in here, like so. If we go back, now we can see the X there. And now we can move down and work on this footer sort of thing that we have here for the button. So what we're going to do is go here underneath of this button. Let me actually minimize the SVG here so we get some more room. And we're going to have a div here. This div is going to have the class of nav menu footer, like so. Then in here, we're going to have an anchor tag, and this anchor tag is going to have a class of BTN, BTN action, BTN small, and then finally BTN brand. And I forgot the double hyphens there. So that's looking much better. And inside of here, what we're going to do is add in another SBG. So this SBG is going to be for this download icon. So let me just grab that really quickly. And I'm going to paste it in there. And then underneath, what I'm going to do is just add in the text download from App Store. And that's starting to look a lot better already. So obviously a lot of the content is just merging in with the background. So the next thing that I want to do is add in the button group. So this button group is going to be this one right here that holds the open Discord button as well as this hamburger menu. And for this, we need to exit outside of the div, which is going to be for the nav menu. So let me just give it a little space there and we can go underneath. And here we can just have a div that has the class of nav BTN group, like so. And we don't actually need all that space. So in here, what we want to do is add another SBG. So this SBG is going to be, well, before we add the SBG, we need a regular button, which is going to be a link for this one. And then we add the button element with the SBG. So we're going to reuse the BTN class here, BTN small, and then we can do BTN light. And in here, we can just add in the text. Well, first, let's just do the placeholder, open Discord. And then here underneath, we are going to have the button element, this button element is going to have the class of btn, btn action, and then btn open. And now we can just grab the SVG. Well, I'll grab the SVG and paste it in like so. And yeah, so that's everything we need for the header and navigation. What I'm going to do for now, just so that we have some sort of background, is I'm going to go here inside of the, where do I put this? So I'm going to create the partial, which is going to be for the, let me just call it showcase. .scss. And then again, let's not forget, we're going to be creating an index partial here as well. And now we can just go ahead and forward the showcase.scss. And here within the main styles, we are going to forward, well, not forward, but use the layout folder. And here, since we're going to be doing the same thing for the components, let me actually just add in everything that we need. So we need components and layouts. So this one, I'm just going to add it in order, components, like so. So inside of the showcase here, let's target the background. And here I'm going to be adding a background image, since this one is going to be the gradient color. So here we're going to be using linear gradient. We're going to rotate it by 90 degrees. And then we can do here B4, 7.3, F5, and then the other color is going to be E29, then 2AA. So now this should be visible, but it isn't. So first of all, before that, let me actually add a position here, because we're going to have a background color. And this thing is going to be using the position of relative, since the background, not the background color, but a background video will have the position of absolute. So now it just says that I can't find the style sheet. So let me just go ahead and here, since we're not using it yet, let's just comment it out. And now everything compiles successfully. So later on, when we do use this, we can just go ahead and uncomment this out. So now that we have the background color here, at least now we can see what's going on. So let's go back to the index.html. And since we're actually not compiling anything yet, I should have just like deleted that, so that, or closed the window, I should say, so that we have a little bit more room just to see what's going on here. So yeah, as I mentioned, that's going to be it for that portion of the header. So still within this background, what we want to do is just add in the markup for the showcase. And here, let me actually add a comment as well. So showcase. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the header. So now under here, I'm going to use the section element and apply a class of showcase. Inside of the showcase, I'm going to have a div that will have the class of row as well as container. So this row class is going to be used for the grid system. And in here, I'm going to have the images, which are going to be for this title as well as the mascot. And then we're also going to have another button group for the buttons right here. So here, let me just give myself a little bit more room there so that it's more readable for you guys. I'm going to have a div that has the class of showcase images. And then inside of there, I'm going to have two images. So the first image is actually going to have a class of showcase images then Wimpus. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Accessibility here is not really a big portion of this tutorial, so I'm just going to ignore the alt tag. And not the alt tag, but the attribute here. And then here for the assets, we're going to go into the assets folder, images folder, and then what we want is the Wimpus. Then we can just go ahead, select this, duplicate it down below, and we can just change this one to Nitro. Here we need to modify the class as well to Nitro. And now we should have both of the images that we want. Now we can go ahead and add in the text. So let me just copy it for reference. And underneath here of this showcase images div, I'm going to have a p tag. The p tag will have a class of showcase paragraph. And you're right if you thought that it's not the most creative name, but that's besides the point. Then I'm going to have some additional classes. This one is going to be for adaptive font. And this is the font class that is going to be responsive. So we're going to have two different ones. It's going to be a medium one and then a large one. So here we're going to have another one. This one is going to be a modifier. So adaptive font and then medium, like so. And now we can just go ahead and paste in the text. Now we can add in the markup for the button group. So here underneath, what we're going to do is add in a div with the class of showcase btn group, and then the additional class of btn group. So that's because we still want to share some other styles for the initial btn group class, and then we want to also slightly modify it if we need to. In this case, since it's not the same thing, technically we could actually use it as a modifier here, but what I'll do instead is just place this here nested within the showcase as opposed to the btn group, because I'm going to actually be placing all the CSS here for this within the the components. So that's going to be for my buttons. So just to keep it separate, I guess it doesn't matter. You can go ahead and do it however you like. This is just how I'm going to do it. So moving on, I'm going to be adding in an anchor tag that has the class of btn. It will have a class of btn action, btn large, and then btn dark, and then btn group btn, like so. And another placeholder here. And then as far as the text, we can just say, well, I'm actually going to just copy it. Well, let's just not be lazy. I'm going to do it manually. So 99.99 per year. And then we're going to have a span here. The span is going to be for the pill. So I'm going to give it a class of btn group btn pill, like so. And then here we can just do 16% off. And let's see how that looks. Right there, looks good. And then the last one, we can just copy it down below, remove a number here, as well as the span. So it should just say $9.99 per month instead, which it does. And finally, the last thing that we are going to do is add in the background video. So that's going to go underneath of this section, but still within the background div. So here we can just use the video element. We're not going to be specifying a source here. Instead, we're just going to be saying that the video should loop, it should autoplay, and then we're going to apply a class of background video, like so. So now we're just going to add in two sources, which are going to be the same video, but in different formats. So the source here, source, is going to be the src of the assets, images, and then the background video webm. And then here we're just going to add the type, which is going to be video web m. We're going to paste this down below, or duplicate it, I should say, and change the format to MP4, as well as the extension there. And yeah, we're pretty much done with the header section. As far as the markup, you can see the video there as well. It's overflowing. And what's next? Well, there's really, like I said, there's nothing here that we can do. So the next step is to actually go back here inside of this showcase so that we can style the hero. So here inside of the background, we're gonna use the ampersand to reference the block element. So remember, the main div here has the class of background, and then the element here has background video. So we just use an ampersand as opposed to typing the entire class. And now we can just say video, and then whatever I do here is going to compile as background video. And what I want to do here is just do a display of none, because I don't want to see the video right now when we're in the mobile view. However, I want to add a breakpoint where I'm going to be showing the video later on larger screens, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to focus on everything else first. So we're going to revisit this later on. So now we can go underneath, and just to show you guys what the compiled CSS looks like, this is what I meant. It compiles as background video. Let me just close that. And now we can target the showcase. So for the showcase here, we're going to be adding a padding top, which is going to be 5.6 rem. Then we're going to be applying a padding bottom, and this padding bottom is going to be almost twice as large. So this one is going to be 11.2 rem. And then since we're going to be positioning this image a little bit to the side, it's going to overflow. So here for the showcase, we're going to target the overflow X and hide it. Then what I'm going to do is select the images. And the position here is going to be relative, since the image of the Wumpus is going to be absolute. So now I can just target the Wumpus. And the position is going to be absolute. Left starting position is going to be 15. I was going to say 15, but it's actually 50%. And then I want to translate the X by 1.2 rem. Finally, I'm going to make it smaller, so I'm going to give it a width of 25 rem. Like so. Then what I'm going to do, and actually I should have just gone in order and actually did the navigation, but since we're already working here with the showcase, let's just continue, and then we're going to do the header and navigation next. So now let's select the Nitro image, and here the width is going to be 30 rem. Then the margin top is going to be 15.2 rem. And then we're going to do a margin inline, and it's going to be set to auto, just so that we can center it within the container, like so. And we still haven't done the container, so it kind of looks messed up right now, and that's because we need to use the display of grid on the container itself. So before we actually keep moving, let's go inside of the components. I consider the container a component, since we're going to be reusing it over and over again. So now we can just do container, And let's go ahead and also add in the index partial. Let's forward the container. And now this should be good. So now we can go to the main file here and just uncomment this out. And let's exit out of there. And what I'm going to do now is select the container. And the container is going to have a max width, which is going to be 126 rem. Then the margin inline, again, so that we can center the container in the middle of the page when it has enough room, is going to be auto. And then the padding inline, here we can just use the variable that we defined for the gutter. So this is going to be the page gutter. So now we have the spacing on the sides. Now remember, we also have a class of row as well. Where is it? So down here. What we want to do here is select the row, and we're going to give this a display of grid. So remember, we're going to have our own little grid system here. So we're going to have a grid template columns, and then we want to repeat the number of columns, a variable that we created, number of columns, and make it one fraction each. So now by default on the small screens, it's going to be 4. Then on medium screens for tablets, it's going to be 8. And then on large screens, it's going to be 12. So let me just show you that again. Right here, the default value is going to be 4. Then we have a 768 pixel breakpoint in ems. And then this one is going to have 8. The page gutter is going to increase as well here. And then finally, this is going to be 12. So now we can go underneath of here and we can apply a column gap. And it's going to be 2 rem. Then what I want to do is just select everything that is a direct child. And what I want to do here is say that I want it to span by the number of columns. So bar, number of columns, like so. And so let me just see. Oh, that's because I forgot to span them. So now, if I go ahead and demo that, if I go to the showcase here, and we open up the grid, you can see that there's 4 of them. Actually make it bigger. You see there's 4 of them. As I make it even larger, there's going to be 8 now. And then finally, there's going to be 12 of them. And it's going to just span the entire width because of the way the variable is set up right here. But later on, especially for the larger screens, we're going to switch it up a little bit and change how much certain things are going to span. So let me just go back to the normal view here. And what's next? So let me just close this since we're not going to be dealing with it anymore. And back inside of the showcase, what we're going to do is continue to style the paragraph as well as the buttons. So this is within the images. Let's go outside of there. And next, I'm going to select the paragraph. And what I want to do here is give it a margin top, which is going to be 4 rem, just for some additional separation. And since we also had the class of adaptive font here, let's go ahead and take care of that right now. So this is going to be within the typography partial. I already forwarded it, so it's all good. And what we're going to do here is select the adaptive font and do a text align of center. And then I'm going to select the adaptive font medium. So here we can do font medium. And what we want to do here is basically just take that responsive, and what am I doing? It should be the only double hyphen. So yeah, what we want to do here is just set the font size to be the variable. And this one is going to be the variable that we have here for the adaptive font, which is going to be the font size medium, like so. And we also want to set a line height of 140%. We're going to have a large one as well, but for now, let's just, actually, we're already there, so might as well just add it in now. So the large one is going to be the font size. Let me just actually copy this. And large. So let me just double check. Yep. So now that we have that, everything is fine. We don't have to touch this at all. So let me just close this and go back to the showcase. And what we're going to continue to do here is we're going to actually, like I said, I'll just wait for the media queries later as opposed to doing it now. I'll probably just wrap everything up within the header and then I'll do the media queries. But let's go back. Well, not go back. Here, let's target the components and let's create the buttons partial. Let's make sure that before that as well. So here we can do buttons like so. And now for the button, we're going to target the main button. And what we're going to do in here is give this a border radius. So border radius is going to be 4 rem. Then the cursor will be set to pointer. And we're also going to have a hover effect here as well. Obviously on mobile, you're not going to notice any of that, but might as well just get it out the way now so that we don't have to worry about it later. So we'll target the hover state. And then here we're just going to apply a box shadow. It's going to be 0, 0.8, and then 1.5 rem. It's going to be an RGBA. And it's going to actually be 0. Well, here we can just add the alpha, so it's basically the same thing. 0, 0, 0, and the alpha, here we can just do 0.2, like so. What else? So we're going to add a transition here, and the transition is going to be on the background color, box shadow, as well as the color. So as opposed to repeating like the shorthand of background color, point whatever, easing out, I'm just going to do them separately. So I'm going to do the transition property. Here we're going to do background color, box shadow, and then the color itself. Then the transition duration, we're going to do 0.2 seconds. And then the transition timing function, we can do ease in, out, like so. Now we can target all the other modifiers. So this one right here is going to be for the action. This will be a display of inline flex. And this is mostly just going to be used for alignment purposes. So we're going to use align items of center, just to align them vertically. And now we're going to target the BTN light. And here the background color is going to be the var color light. And then for contrast, this one is going to be color dark. And obviously it's not going to be the background color. We have to make this the color itself. And right there, we have an issue. So that's better. And what else? So here we have actually open Discord BTN Lite. Well, this should have worked. Let me see. Yeah, right there. So this didn't work. Why not? Let me look at the variables. Oh, it's actually light color, not color. So here we're going to do light color instead. And then here we can just say dark color and then just remove it from here. All right, so that's much better. Then I'm going to select the hover state. And here it's just going to change colors. And we're going to be using the var of brand color. And that's working. So now we can go ahead and target the BTN small. The font size here is going to be 1.4 rem. Line height is going to be 2.4 rem. The font weight is going to be 400. And the margin left, actually margin right, is going to be 1.6 rem. And that's just going to create a little bit of separation there between the button and this right here. And what else? I'm going to add a padding top and bottom of 0.7 rem, and then 1.6 rem left and right. Then we're going to target the BTN brand. So that's going to be the blue button. And this right here is going to have a display of flex, since I want to override the display of inline flex from the other one because I want it to stretch all the way across. Then I want to justify my content to the center. And then for the background color, we're going to be using the brand color right there. And then the margin right is going to be set to 0. So the next thing that I want to do is add a hover state here for the background color. We're just going to get a lighter shade of the current color. So here we're going to set the hover state to be on the background color. And then we're going to use the following hex. So here 79, 83, and then F5. I mean, you could use HSL as well, but for this demo, it doesn't really matter. So now I'm going to target the button that has the class of icon. So here, if we go back to, where is it? It's going to be the SBG right here. So the SBG here for the small button that we have, and this is within the menu footer. So now we can go back inside of here, and we can say icon. And here, I'm just going to add a margin right because I want to separate this download icon a little bit. So the margin right is going to be 0.8 rem, like so. And now I'm going to target the BTN large. And what I want to do here is change the background color. This one is going to be the color dark, the dark color, I should say. And I'm going to add a hover state here as well. Actually, this should be only on the dark modifier. And we're going to add a hover state here as well. And again, it's going to be the same thing, just a lighter shade. And this one is going to be 36 then 3.9, and then 3F. So now for the button large, we're going to be adding some padding. This padding is going to be 1.6 top and bottom, and then 3.2 left and right. And then the font size here is going to be 2 rem. And finally, the border radius is going to be 2.8 rem. So everything's starting to look pretty good already. So what we're going to do now is target everything specific that is inside of this BTN group. So for this, we're going to exit out of our button and we're going to specify the BTN group. And now, well, first of all, I'm going to add a margin top, which is going to be 4 rem. And now we can go ahead and select the BTN. And what I want to do here is make this a display of flex. Justify my content to the center. And then I'm going to give it a margin bottom, which is going to be 2.4 rem for separation. And finally, the font weight here is going to be 400. And quick note, here, as you can see, I'm using the same name for every font that I'm importing. And this is just a neat way of controlling the font weights by specifying the font weight here, as opposed to having, for example, Whitney Light, Whitney Book here for each name and typing like different font names every time. So this way you can just add a font weight and just basically include the font under whatever the name is you gave it. And then you can just specify a font weight, and that's going to give you the light version, the normal version, or even the bold version. But anyways, back to this. Now we can go ahead and style the pill. And here the background color is going to be the variable for the brand. Then the border radius is going to be 2.4. Padding inline is going to be 0.8. Then the margin left for separation, margin left is going to be, let's do 1 rem. Right there. Then the font size is going to be small, so it's going to be 1.2. And the line height is going to be 2.4 rem. And my stomach just keeps growling because it's been probably like an hour now and I'm actually pretty hungry after I woke up from a nap. But I'm going to bang out the header, make it responsive. I'm going to grab something to eat, and then I'll keep working on the project. But anyways, the font weight here is going to be the lightest one. So that's going to be 300. And yeah, that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead now and work on what we should have worked first, which would have been the navigation. So here for this, we can just go and create the partial here for the header. And we can now forward. Come on. The header. So let's close this. And within the header, what we are going to do, like I said, we're not going to be using the header at all, but I'm just going to call it header since, you know, the navigation is inside of the header, or we could have just done navigation, but it doesn't really matter. End result is still going to be the same. So the nav is going to have a display of flex. I want to align my items to the center and justify them space between. Then I also want to add a height, which is going to be 8 rem. And now we can go ahead and target the logo. So we can just do logo. And then we're not going to be doing anything with the logo itself, but the image inside of it. I just decided to do it this way so that we can nest it, but you don't have to nest it. Instead, you can just do like nav image, logo image, or whatever it is. But here, I'm just going to say the display. Well, first, I have to specify that I want to target the image. And here we can do a display of block, like so. Now we're going to target the BTN group that is within the nav itself. So here we can do BTN group, and like so. Here, display is going to be flex as well. And then my items are going to be aligned to the center. So now it's going to be perfectly aligned. Then I'm going to select the backdrop. Now notice that we still haven't created an element that has this class. However, we're going to be inserting this element for the backdrop, which is going to be the darker underlay of the nav using JavaScript. Because I noticed that when I was checking out the Discord website, this is actually how they do it, because they have a different navigation from the one they show initially. And they actually insert that navigation dynamically with JavaScript. Obviously, I'm not going to take it that far, but I am going to include the backdrop. So here, I'm going to target the backdrop, not frop. And what I'm going to do here is give this a position of fixed. Then I'm going to do an inset of 0. So that's going to be top, left, right, bottom. So here for the background color, it's going to be an RGBA. And here we can actually shorten this if we want to just 3 zeros. And then here we can do 0.3. And then what we're going to do is give this a C index of 997. And that's going to fall in with the order of the other elements that we are going to have later on. And you'll see once we actually get to that. Now I'm going to work on the menu itself. My stomach just keeps growling, but we're almost there. It's okay. And the menu is going to have the position of fixed. Then the top here is going to be 0, right, 0, and bottom 0. So that's just going to stretch it all the way to the bottom. So now we can do a background color, which is going to be the var of light color. So once we add the 0, we don't have to specify width or height. We can just do the 0 here towards the bottom, and it's going to stretch it all the way to the bottom. Then I'm going to give this a width, which is going to be 33 rem. I'm going to actually move that up, and then here I'm going to add a C index, and the C index here that I want to specify is going to be slightly higher than the backdrop. So I'm going to do 998. Then I want to change up the border radius here, just like it is right here, as you can see on the top left and the bottom left. And to do that, we can just say border top left radius, and we can do here 0.8. And then we're going to do the same thing for the bottom, like so. Now, the other thing that we want to do is add some spacing around it. So we're going to be using padding there. And the padding to the top is going to be 2.4, 4.8 to the right, and then 12 towards the bottom, and then 2.4 to the left, right there. Now we're going to be adding transform, translate X, and then we can just do 33 rem to move it by the same width to the right. So that's going to hide it from view. Now keep in mind that we still want to see what we're doing, so I'm going to comment this out and then we can just come back to it later. So now I'm going to add in a modifier, and this modifier again is going to be a class that we will add through JavaScript when we click the X. So here, what we're going to do, well, actually, before we go there, let's go back to the buttons because we need to add what happens to the X right here. And that was the btn close. So we can just add it underneath of here. Or maybe I should have just like added the class so that we can, you know, actually manipulate it inside of the showcase instead. But I mean, it's not a big deal. We can just do it here anyways. So the position is going to be absolute. The top is going to be 2.4. Then here for the right, we're going to do the same thing to keep it consistent. And then we're going to do a margin all around, which is going to be negative 0.8 rem. Then we're going to do the same thing for the padding here, just so that we can give it a slightly larger padding clickable area. And then the C index here is going to be even higher than the panel here for the nav itself, just so that we make sure that it stays on top. And yeah, that's everything that we need right there for the close. So we can just exit out of here and go back to working on the menu there. So with that out of the way, we can now here add the styles for the modifier of active. And here, what we can do is say active transform translate X, and we just set it to the initial position that we had before. And then I also want to add a transition, and it's going to be on the transform over 0.15 seconds. Now let's go ahead and style up the divider. So the divider is just going to be the line. And we're going to give this a height of 1 pixel. The background color is going to be EBETF. And then we're going to give it a margin top for separation of 2.4 rem. And then we're going to do a margin bottom. And this one is going to be slightly smaller at 1.6 instead. And it's barely visible here on the screen, but trust me, it's right there. So that's going to be it for the divider. Now let's work on the footer. The footer is going to have the position of absolute since we want it to be here all the way to the bottom. So I'm going to give it a left of 0, right of 0, and then we can do a bottom of 0 right there. And the reason why it's getting cut up a little bit, it's because this is actually a little bit taller than it should. So right there should be fine. Yep. So now everything's lining up here with the two windows, and I'm going to give it some padding all around. So the padding is going to be 2.4 rem. And that's all we need for that right now. So let's go ahead and target the list and style the links. And to do that, we're going to be doing it. What was it? Let me just double check. So nav menu, nav list. So yeah, this is actually going outside. So here we're going to find the closing for the menu, and we're going to go outside, still within the nav. And now we're going to target the list. And we're going to make it a display of flex. And then flex direction is going to be set to column. Now inside of the list, we have the links. And this will have a display of block just so that it stretches all the way across. And we're going to give this a padding just so that we can make it slightly larger. So padding is going to be 0.8 top and bottom, 1.6 left and right. And now for the color itself, we're going to use the var, which is going to be the dark color. Like so, and everything is looking so much better already. So let me just go back here, as you can see. It's looking pretty similar aside from, the rest of the missing content. So yeah, I think now we're ready to work on the JavaScript. So let's go inside of the JavaScript so that we can actually make this functional. And before I move even further, let me just uncomment this back out. And now we can work on the JavaScript itself. So let me just briefly close this so that we have a little bit more room to work with. Something I'll do real quick is just make this slightly bigger, just so that it shows up on the screen a lot better. Because before it was like a little bit too small, even though it's like the normal size. But anyways, as far as what we're going to be doing now within the JavaScript, we are going to create several variables. So the first one is going to be for the open icon or the hamburger menu. And here we'll just do document dot query selector document. Come on, document dot query selector. And here, what we are going to do is select the btn open. Now we're going to need a few more. So for the last one, since it's pretty simple, this one is going to be document.body to select the body. And we'll just rename this to body EL element for short. Then this one can be the nav menu. And then the class that we want to target is nav menu. Then this one is going to be for the btn close. And then we can just change this portion right here to close icon. So that's everything that we need for now. What I'll do is create a function. I'm going to call this open menu. And what we are going to do here is add a class. So the class is going to be added to the nav menu. So nav menu class list add, and then the class that we want to add is going to be the modifier. So nav menu active, like so. So if we quickly come down here and we add the event listener to the open icon. So open icon, add event listener. And here we are going to listen for a click event. And then we just pass in the open menu function. Well, now when I click this, it should work. Obviously the other click event is not ready yet, so it's not going to work here. So let's quickly take care of that right now. So here we can just rename this to close menu. And then it's going to be the same thing, except that now we change remove. We change open to remove. And then here we just pass in the new function. And now we change this one to close icon. So now this should work as well. And it does. Another thing that I want to do now is basically prevent the user from being able to scroll. Because, right now we don't really have any scrolling content. But for example, if we go to the finished version, see we have scrolling content. If we open the menu, we basically want to remove the ability for the user to be able to scroll down or up. So it just stays fixed there. So to do that, it's pretty simple. All we have to do is just like the body EL. And we are going to add a style, which is going to be on the overflow. And we're just simply going to hide it. So now the user is not going to be able to scroll. And then one thing that we have to do again is after we close the navigation, we want to basically turn the overflow back to how it was before. So now after it's closed, the user is going to be able to scroll again. So the other thing that I want to do now is add the backdrop and as well the ability so that when we open the navigation, we can also close it by clicking outside of it. So what I'm going to do is call a function here that I'm going to name add backdrop. And then here, I'm going to call a different one that is going to be called closed backdrop. Actually, no. Remove backdrop is a more fitting name. What we have to do now is create those functions. So I'm going to start with adding the backdrop. So constant add backdrop. And then here, what we are going to do is create an element. So I'm going to store it in a variable, and I'm going to call this element backdrop. And then we'll just say document that create element right here. And what we want to create is a div. So we can say div like so. I mean, we could also do this in one line, but I'm just going to do it over here anyways. So what I'll do now is add a class to the backdrop that is going to be of nav backdrop. So we can say backdrop class list add, and here we'll say nav backdrop like so. And actually, I'm going to define the other variable over here. And this one is going to be for the nav el or nav element. So nav el. And here we want to use query selector. And we want to select the nav. So the reason why we are doing this is because we are going to insert the element, the new element within the nav element. So to do that, we are going to go down here and we'll say nav el and then insert before. So here we have to pass in the element that we want to insert and where should we insert it. So obviously we want to insert the backdrop and we want to do it before the nav el. Actually, not the nav el, the nav menu. Nav menu. Like so. So if we click this, the backdrop should now come up. Well, I'm clicking actually the finished demo. But yeah, it's the same deal here. As you can see, the backdrop is showing up. And as you can see, it's staying there because we still haven't removed it. So let's go ahead and create that function as well. So now we'll say const remove backdrop. And here, what we are going to do is document. And then we'll say query selector, since we want to select the backdrop itself. And we'll say, again, we want to select the nav backdrop, like so, and we'll just remove it. So now if we click it again, it comes up. If we click the X, it's now gone. So the last thing that we have to do now is add in the ability to close this when we click outside of it or when we click the backdrop. So for this, we're going to create yet another function. Yeah, I know there's many of them, but it's okay. So constant, and then we'll call this one close menu outside. And also, we'll use E, short for element, as a placeholder here so that we can do something with it right now within this if statement. So we're going to say if E dot target class list contains what is it? Backdrop nav backdrop, like so. So it's basically saying if the element that we are clicking contains the class of nav backdrop, we want to do something with it. And what do we want to do? Well, we want to close the menu. So what we are going to do here is simply just say, where is it? Close menu right here. Actually, we can just go ahead and it's a lot easier if we just call the close menu. Where is it? Where is it? Close menu function. So as you can see right here, when we click on this backdrop, we are going to close the menu, and that's going to basically get rid of the active class, remove the backdrop, and also reset the overflow. And since we only have one line here, well, first let me just demo it. We clicked it. Oh, what's going on? Server failed to load resource, blah, blah, blah. Well, that has nothing to do with what's going on. So it contains the class. Let me just console.log. And I'll say contains. So let's open that up. Console. Oh, well, obviously I'm stupid. That's because I still haven't called the function itself. So obviously, how is it going to work if it's not being called? So here we'll just add another event listener, and this one is going to be on the window object. And again, we are listening for a click. And then here, close menu outside. So let's try that again. Click outside and it's gone. So yeah, I'm stupid for that. I was trying to do something without actually attaching the event listener. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the navigation itself. As you can see, it's working pretty well. The next thing that we are going to do now is make all this responsive. So let me just close the JavaScript file since we are not going to be using it anymore. And the first thing that I want to do is make this slightly larger, just so that we can get close to the breakpoint for the tablets, like so. And what we're going to do is add the first breakpoint. Well, the first breakpoint is going to be actually for the larger screens, for like desktops and stuff, so that we can make the nav items show up here, kind of like they do right here. Obviously, we're gonna need a little bit more room, so let me just make this smaller. So here, the first thing that I'm going to do is go to the underneath of this list right here, still within the nav, and the breakpoint here is going to be, you could also create a mixin for this if you wanted to. I mean, it's not too late to do it now, but I'm feeling a little bit lazy, so I'll just skip it. And here, the min width is going to be 64 EM, and that's I believe 1024 pixels. So we're using EMs here just because it's going to be based off of the user settings within the browser. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is apply a reset to the nav menu. Remember, we are still working within the nav, so that's why I'm able to use ampersand underscore menu. So it's still going to compile as nav menu. And here the position is going to be set to initial. Then the width as well, initial. Background color, transparent. Then the border radius, initial. Then the padding, initial as well. And finally, the transform. this is going to be initial as well. So let's quickly take a look at that. As you can see, it's showing up right there. Now, the other thing that we have to do now is going to be basically selecting everything that is the logo, divider, and footer within this navigation, and we're going to give it a display of none. So for this, we can just use is. And then we'll say in here, display none. And now we specify what is that we want. So we want the nav menu logo. We also want the divider. And finally, we want the footer, like so. Now, the other thing that we want to target here is going to be the, well, again, I'm looking actually at the finished project when I should have been looking at this one. So as you can see, there's really not that much going on there. And for example, what was it right over here? So this right here, again, it's always a pain. So let me see. So wait, what's wrong? I wasn't even watching the SAS? Oh, come on, I'm slacking. So yeah, it should work now. And again, it's not dragging both of them, but as you can see, it's working now. And if I was, for example, to comment this out, now that's gone as well. Should be doing both right there, but for some reason it isn't. So it doesn't really matter. We'll just leave it as it is. We're not going to really bother with it too much. So now we are going to select the list. And this is going to have a display of flex. Isn't it already flex though? Yeah, it's already flex, so we don't need a display flex. However, we are going to change the flex direction to row. And that's going to look much better right there. Then we are going to target the link that is inside of it. The link is going to have a padding that is increased. So the padding is now going to be 1 rem all around. Padding 1 rem all around. The margin inline, so left and right, is going to be 1 rem as well. Then the color is going to be changed to white. So your color, actually light color. And then the font weight is going to be 600, like so. Finally, we are going to add a hover effect here to the link. And this is just going to be on the text decoration, and we'll say underline, like so. So that looks pretty good. What else do we have to do? So that pretty much takes care of the header portion. So we can go ahead and just exit out of this. As far as the showcase, there's a few things that we have to do, but let's go ahead and take care of the buttons right now. And right here. So one thing that we have to do for sure is hide the hamburger as well as the X. So let me just see right here. So this is going to be still inside of the button. And the first breakpoint here is going to be, again, for the extra large screens. And we had it before, header. So let me just grab it from here. And then we can just paste it here. Make sure we close that. And here, what we are going to do is select the small button. And we're going to give it a margin right of 0. Then you're going to use is once more. And here we'll say display none. And this is going to be for the open and close, like so. So now the buttons are being hidden. Now for the button group itself, let me actually make it smaller so that it's on the tablet screens. And right under here, I'm going to add it again. And now I'm going to change it to 48 EM. So this is going to be for the tablets, 768 pixels or larger. So what we're going to do here is make it so that they're side by side. So we'll do a display of flex. And now we are going to go ahead and select, is it not? Oh, there it is. So this is the right breakpoint. Now we are going to select the first child button. So here we'll just do btn first child, and the margin right is going to be for rem, like so. So now we get some separation. Oh, it should be per month here. I thought that was kind of off. So let's find that per month right here. So that's much better. And this should also be centered. We're going to be taking care of that right now. So header, not the header. Let me just close that. So as far as the buttons right here, the margin right, we have everything we need here. So we can just go ahead and exit out of that. Then we are going to go back here inside of the showcase, and we're going to be adding the styles that we want to add here. So for the showcase, we are going to be using both breakpoints, but before we do anything else, let me just scroll over to the video, and here I'm going to add both breakpoints. So this one is going to be 48. And what I'm going to do here now is actually no, this one is going to be 81 right here. So 81.25 EM. And there's going to be another breakpoint for this one as well. This is all for the video. And this breakpoint is going to be 107.5 EM. And this one is going to be the 64 because we're not going to be using the 48. We're not going to be showing the video until we get to the large screens. So now I can do the background and make it transparent. Then what we are going to do is set the overflow to hidden. And now we can go ahead and target the video. And just so that we can see that, let me make it large enough right there. Now we can target the video, and the video is going to get a position of absolute. The top starting position is going to actually we have to give this a display of block to show it again. So the starting position here is going to be 72%. Then the left is going to be 50%. Then we're going to give this a min height. That is going to be 150%. Then we'll give this a min width. That is going to be 140%. Let me actually move the width up first. And here, let me just do a transform translate. As well as a C index of -1, just so that we can send it back and the content is going to show. Obviously, we still have to work on the showcase to fix this, but right now, let's just focus on the video itself. So now we are going to select the video again because we have to make some changes as the screen gets bigger. So here, we'll do video again. And now the top position is going to change to 75%. And then the min height is going to be 135%. And then it's going to be the same deal for the last breakpoint here. This is now going to be 80% and 130%. So that takes care of the background video. Now, the next thing that we have to do now is target what happens inside of the showcase. So for this, let's scroll down, go underneath of the paragraph, and let me just copy this, paste it here, close that, and now we can change this to 48 rem. Paste it down below and change this to 64. So for the tablet breakpoint, what we are going to do is change the padding top. We're going to make it a rem. Then the padding bottom, we're going to make this 13.6 rem. And I find it funny how sometimes like I'll use the emit abbreviations when applying paddings and whatnot. And then some of the times, like I'll just like type the whole thing out, or I'll just let the IntelliSense like pick it for me. Not pick it, but like, you know, I'll pick it from there. So anyways, we're going to go back and select the paragraph now. And what we are going to do is say that we want it to span. Let me make it smaller. We want it to span. Well, first we have to specify grid column. We want it to start at 2 and span 6. Then we are going to do the same. Well, not the same. And let's actually do this. So now it's better. So what we're going to do now is make sure that the buttons are centered. So we are going to target the BTN group. And here we'll just say justify content center, like so. Then for the desktop view, what we are going to do now is basically the same thing, except that we are going to increase it. So let me just copy everything we have right here. So now the padding top is going to be 12. And this one is going to be 17.6. Now, as far as the paragraph right here, we can just get rid of this and say text align left. Then for the images and for the Nitro, this actually comes before the paragraph. We'll say images Nitro. The margin is going to be set to 0. So now it's going to be all the way over here. And what else? So this, I'm going to be changing it. So now the justify content is going to be to the left. And we're also going to have a little bit of an issue here, like when we make this, when we change it around. because, for example, after we get to a certain point, well, that's because this is not properly. So, well, I'm starting at 2. That's the issue right here. Should be starting at 1 now. So where is it? Where is it? Text align, span 2, 2, 2, 2. What is it? Oh, right over here. So for the paragraph right here, grid column, we can just set this back to 1. And yeah, now it's actually where we want it to be. So where was I? So there's going to be like a little issue later on where this is going to actually run into each other when there's not enough room. So what we're going to do here is just give this a not display, but we want to set the flex wrap to wrap, just that so that when there's not enough space, it's going to basically just wrap. And you know what? Actually, I want everything to just span 1. So it's going to be a lot easier if I just do this as opposed to repeating it. And now I can say is, and then grid column span 1. So now I can just select everything together as opposed to doing it one by one. So I can do images, Nitro, and again, it's a bad habit of just like picking it from the IntelliSense. And here the paragraph as well. And finally, the button group. Like so. So for example, if this isn't there, now notice how like it gets like squished up over here and the buttons get bigger. So that's the reason why we are using flex wrap here. So this way, when there's not enough room, it just actually collapses down. So let me just exit out of this view now because everything is exactly where we want it. So the only thing that we have to do now is get rid of the Wumpus, and it's actually going to be over here. Let me just copy this, paste it on top, and then I can just change this to Wumpus, and then I can do a display of none. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's everything we need to make the header section responsive. Everything here works just fine. So yeah, so the only thing that we have to do now is add in the markup for, what do you call it, the other section. I forgot what I called it. I think it was, let me take a look at my reference. So it's going to be for the benefits section. So again, let me just minimize this, close this since we're not going to be using it anymore. And right under here, we are now going to have the main section. And in here, we are going to have another comment. So benefits, come on, right there. And under here, we are going to start with another section. So this section is going to be called benefits. And then we're going to repeat the same div with the class of row and container. And then in here, we are going to have the heading, then the subheading here, and then we are going to have all the cards. And then towards the bottom, we're going to have another BTN group with some text on top of it. So let me actually just keep it there for reference. And yeah, so what we're going to do here is now have a div. This div is going to have a class of benefits. heading. Then in here, we are going to have an H2. The H2 is going to have the class of benefits, title, a class of adaptive font, and adaptive font large, just like so. And then I'm going to duplicate this down below, and I'm going to change this to subtitle, make it a p tag, and this one is going to actually be medium, like so. So let me just grab all the text from here. And if you want to grab like all the text, you can always just grab it straight from the Discord website. And I'm going to be a little bit lazy. So obviously you're going to do this in lowercase and then use text transform uppercase. But since I'm already just copying it from here, I'm going to leave it as it is. And yeah, that's going to be what we need for that heading right there. We can't see it because it's blending in. But if we highlight it, you can see that it shows up. Then what we're going to do is go underneath and we're going to create the container for all the cards. So that's going to be here. And we're going to give this the class of benefits cards, as well as make it a row. And in here, we are going to use the article element. And then we are going to be applying the class of benefits card, like so. And then inside of here, we are going to have a title, we're going to have a p tag, and then we're going to have an image, just like you see right here. So the H5 is going to have a class of benefits. And then we are going to say card title. We are going to also give this the additional classes of adaptive font and adaptive font medium, like so. Then underneath, we are going to have the p tag that is going to have the class of benefits card description. Finally, we are going to have the image itself. So the image is going to have the class of benefits card image. And then for the source, we can go inside of the assets folder, images folder, and now we can look for the emoji card SVG. So we're going to do the same thing here for the text, copy it from here, like so. And then here as well. So now that we have the basic structure for the cards, what we're going to do now is just copy this. And we're going to paste it below 6 times. I think that was 6. Now I'm going to give myself some more spacing here just so that it's more readable. And what we're going to do now is just modify the information. So we worked on the first one. Now we're going to work on the second one. So we're going to copy this and say personal profile. Oh, and I actually messed it up over here because it should have been better emoji. Like so. And then here we can say this. We can grab now support a server. Get this as well. Wrap your server. And then 2 more to go, so bigger uploads. And again, if you need all the text, you can always pull up the Discord website. So what am I doing again? Oh yeah, the Discord website. Forgot that what I was doing for a second. And you can just straight up just grab it from here. But anyways, bigger uploads, file sizes up to 100 megabytes. And finally, HD video. Like so. And just change it here. And yeah, that's going to be all for the cards. Now we have to target this do it and the other buttons. Oh yeah, we have to change the images as well. So that's another thing. So this one is going to be for personal, profile, this one support. This one is going to be for rep. This one uploads. And then this one is going to be for, was it video? Yeah, video card. So yeah, now we have all the cards that we need. Again, now we just need to tackle this portion right here. So for this, we're gonna exit the cards row, which is this one right here. And we're going to have a div that has the class of benefit footer. This benefits footer is going to have an H3. This H3 is going to have the class of benefits footer title, and then adaptive font, just for the text align center, since we are not really going to be using any modifiers here. I'm going to copy the text, paste it in there, and underneath I'm going to have a div, and this is going to be the BTN group. So it's going to be almost the same thing. So let me just go ahead and copy it from this one. And then we're going to be making some changes to it. So this one, as opposed to showcase BTN group, we're going to be changing it to benefits footer. Benefits footer, BTN group. Then this stays the same. Then the classes here are going to basically stay the same as well. And then this as well over here. So there's really nothing that's going to change. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this section. Let's go ahead and work on it. As you can see, since we are reusing components, it's already looking great right out of the box. But yeah, let's work on this right now. So let's create a partial here, and this partial is going to be for benefits. Let's now go inside of the index so that we can forward it like so. And now inside of the benefits, what we are going to do is select the benefits section. We're going to give it a padding top. That is going to be 5.6 rem. A padding bottom. That is going to be 3.2. Come on. Keep typing 2 instead. Now I'm going to select the heading. And the color here is going to be the variable, and it's going to be the dark color. Like so. Now I'm going to select the title. And the title is going to have a font weight of 100, a line height of 95%, and then a text transform of uppercase. I'm going to do it anyways, even though it's already uppercase, because that's how we typed it. But originally, it was supposed to be typed as lowercase. So it's just better practice to do it this way anyways. So even though technically we don't need it right now, I'll just leave it in. Now I'll select the subtitle. And the subtitle is going to have a margin top of 2.4 rem. Now I'm going to select the cards. And I'm going to give it a gap. This gap is going to be 2 rem. Remember that we can use gap because we are using the, where is it? Right here, we were using the row, which has a display of grid. So then I'm going to add additional separation here with a margin top of 5.6 rem. Then I'm going to select all of the cards. So right here, cards, I'm going to give it a padding all around of 3.2 rem. Then the border radius is going to be 0.8 rem. And then text align is going to be center. Now within the card, we have the title. The font weight here is going to be normal. And we also have the description. And here we are going to, well, first of all, let me just give this a color to begin with. Well, technically we don't need a color because it's already white and that's what we want. So the only thing that we have to do is actually add in the gradient colors. So I'm going to say nth child 1 background var card gradient 1. And let's see, card gradient 1. What did I do? So let's take a look at the compiled CSS. So benefits cards. There's a background red. Yeah, it's definitely not getting added. So let me double check. Cards. Oh, well, there's my mistake right there. I have an S when I shouldn't have an S. So yeah, that's working right there. Now as far as the description, line height is going to be 2 rem, actually 2.4. And then for the margin top is going to be 1.2 rem. Just for additional separation right there. Now, as far as the image, we want to center it, and we also want to add a little bit of margin top. So, and image, empty, 2 rem, and then we're going to do a margin inline of auto. And that's going to center it in the middle. So now we can just go ahead and do the rest of the gradient for everything else. So at 6, now we can say 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we can get rid of the extra one. And now we're just going to do the same thing here. 3, 2. It's kind of like a countdown. So now all the gradients are in place. Now I'm going to select the nth child as well as the nth child 5 and 6, well, both of them together. And I'm going to target the image just because I want to make them slightly smaller. So here and nth child nth child 5, as well as 6, and then the image inside of it. And what I'm going to do here is give it a width of 17.7 rem, and then a height that is going to be 11.6 rem. Just like so. So if we take a look at the compiled CSS, we now see that we are selecting the image that is inside of it. We could have done like that individually over here, but why repeat it if you can just group them both together? So now we have to style some of the footer over here, and that's going to be underneath of this card group that we have here. So we're going to say, and footer, we're going to be doing a padding top of 5.6 as well for separation. And now we are going to select the title, and the title is actually inside of the footer. So the font size here is going to be slightly different than it's going to be an adaptive font, but it's going to be different than the other ones. And since we only use it once, there was really no point of reusing it as a class or variable, I should say. So here we're going to use clamp. We're going to specify the minimum size, then a size in between that is going to be based on the viewport width of 3 rem, of 3 viewport width, I should say, and then 3.2 rem as the maximum. And line height here is going to be 120%. And then the color is going to be the var dark color. So now everything is showing up just fine. So now we can go ahead and add in the first breakpoint. So the first breakpoint here is going to be 448. Let me just make it larger. Right there should be fine. And here we're going to set the padding top to be 8 rem. Then the padding bottom is going to be 5.6 rem. Now we're going to select the cards, and the margin top is going to be 8 rem here as well for the additional separation. Now, as far as the card, I wanted to span 4 because now we have access to 8. So we can say card grid column span 4. And now we're going to have 2 side by side. Now we can go ahead and select the footer. Let me just scroll down so that we can see it. And the padding top is going to be a rem here as well. And now we can go ahead and target the BTN that is inside of the footer, and we're going to give it a width of 100%. And then what I'm going to do is select the first child. So BTN, well, we can just say and first child. We can say that the margin right is going to be 2 rem. Like so, just so that we can make it smaller. And that's already looking perfect. So let me just copy this again. I'm going to paste it underneath. And now we can change it to 64. And here it's going to be the same thing. Well, we're going to have to delete some things. And here we can just increase the padding top to 12. And then this one to 9.6. Now, as far as the cards, we are going to increase that to 12 as well. And we can get rid of this span right here. And what we are going to do is change the footer to 12. And then the BTN group, we can actually get rid of this. And we can make the width 38 rem. And now as far as the BTN group, what we are going to do here is justify content center, like so. So this is going to be for the larger screens. As you can see right there, everything is working just fine. So what else? Well, I'm pretty sure that's it for this section. Let me just double check. Yep, that is going to be all for that. So the other section that we're going to be working on is going to be this one right here, where the SVG animation is. Like I said before, we're really not going to jump into that because it's just way too large. And the moment I saw it, I was like, yeah, I don't have time for that. But that's good enough though. And we're going to make this smaller again. Scroll down. And I'm going to make this larger. So same deal as before. I'm going to close this since we are not going to be compiling anything, as well as this. I'm going to grab this. Well, I'm going to grab this first section right here. And I'm going to go underneath. I'm going to go add the closing div as well as the section tag. And this one, we can call it Nitro Classic. Then the rest can stay the same. Then inside of this row, I'm going to have a div. This div is going to have the class of Nitro Classic content. Then we are going to have an image, and this image is going to be again for the same title, then the paragraph and the BTN group. So the image is going to have the class of Nitro Classic image as its folder, images folder, Nitro SVG. Since it's going to be the same image as before, this one is just going to be slightly smaller. Then what we are going to do is underneath add a p tag. This p tag is going to have the class of Nitro Classic paragraph, adaptive font, and then adaptive font, and then this one is going to be medium, like so. And then I'll just go ahead and copy the text, paste it in here, and then here for the BTN group, it's going to be exactly the same as we did before. So I'm just going to grab it from this one right here, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it underneath. And we have to change a few classes here. So this one, Nitro Classic, and then we'll say BTN group. And then we still need the additional class of BTN group here. We still remain with the same class here. So everything stays the same pretty much. Now we change the text, $49.99 a year. And this one, $4.99 per month. And that's pretty much it for this section as well. So the only thing that we are going to do now is going to be, as you can see, it's already working, is going to be creating another partial. This one is going to be for the Nitro Classic. Nitro Classic. Same deal as before. We're going to forward. And yeah, we're ready to go. So let me just close this. And within the Nitro Classic, we are going to select Nitro Classic padding block. And we're going to give this a 5.6 rem. So that's going to be padding top and bottom. Now for the background color, we're going to be using 7289 DA, which is going to be the blue right there. And that's the beauty of reusable components. It's just that a lot of the work is already done and you're just reusing it, so you don't have to do a lot more work. And missing an S right there. So classic. So Nitro Classic right there. So yeah, so inside of here, we are going to target the image. The image is going to have a width of 20 rem. Then we're going to say that the paragraph is going to be text aligned to the left. Then the margin top is going to be 2.4 rem. And the line height is going to be 1.625. Now we're going to target the BTN group and we're going to give it a margin top. So, and BTN group. And the margin top here is going to be 3.2 rem, like so. And that's all there is for the mobile view here. Let's make this bigger now so that we can go on the tablet view so that we can add in the media queries here. And we're going to start with the 48 EM. And what we want to do here is just increase the padding. So padding block 8 rem. Then I'm going to select the content. And the content is basically just going to be spanning 1. It's going to start at 1 and span 6. So grid column 1 span 6, like so. So for the larger breakpoint, let me actually just make this small right there. So for the larger breakpoint, what we're going to do, remember, this one is 64. So what we're going to do here is select the padding top and bottom once more. So padding top. This time they're both going to be different. So top is going to be 12. Bottom is going to be 15. Now we can go ahead and select the content. And we can go ahead and just move it over. So here we started at 1 and span 6. Now we start at 7 and span 6. So now that's going to move it all the way to the right, like so. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to this one right here. Let me actually just take a look at something really quickly. The buttons are like a little bit messed up there, but I mean, I'm not going to bother too much with it. So back to this viewport right here for the mobile. We're gonna go back now and finish things up by working on the footer. And this is probably the most complicated part. Not necessarily complicated, but time consuming. Aside from like the navigation and the showcase. But we're pretty much like almost done. The only thing is the footer. And let me actually go ahead and just create the partial for it right now. Footer. And let's go ahead and for that. So that we can be done with it. And then we can just close this since we are not going to use it anymore. And here we can also change the comment to Nitro Classic. And then for this one, we are going to go outside of the main since this one is going to be for the footer. So we're going to start by having the footer. We're going to give it the class of footer. And then in here, it's going to be the same concept. We're going to have a div, row, container. And what we want to do here is add this portion that has the Imagine plays, languages, and also the icons. Something that I didn't add in was like the chevron here for the language selection. It's not a big deal though. You can feel free to add it in yourself if you wish. But yeah, as far as the footer, we're going to go inside of this row, container. And now we're going to use div to group the information we have here. So div footer info. And then inside of there, we're going to have an h4. This h4 is going to have the class of footer info title. Then underneath, we are going to have another div, and this div is going to have the class of footer info languages. Footer info languages. And inside of here, we're going to go inside of the images folder, and we're going to grab the flag. And did I call it a flag? So images, assets, images, flag. And we're going to have a span. And this span is going to, let's see, English and USA. Actually, let's go ahead and add the icon for the chevron. So let's take a look at all of that. Well, we can't see it because it's all blending in. But here we can just do the Imagine a place within the heading. And this time around, I'm actually just going to do the Imagine a place, lowercase like that. So the other thing that we're going to do still within this footer info is going to be a div that doesn't really have a class because it's only there for grouping purposes. It doesn't really matter. And then we're going to have an anchor tag. This anchor tag is going to have the class of footer info socials. And then inside of there, we're going to have the icons. So the first icon is going to be for Twitter. So RI is going to be the I element. So RI Twitter line, like so. So now that we have the basic structure here, we can just go ahead and duplicate it down below. We can change Twitter now to Instagram. Then this one, Facebook. And then box fill. And the last one is going to be YouTube fill, like so. Again, nothing is really shown up. Let me just double check there. So yeah, my icons are there. They're just not visible. But we're going to be taking care of that once we add the colors. So that's going to be it for the footer info that we have right there. What we're going to do next is go ahead and add the footer spacer. So that's going to be, there's like a div right here in between that is empty. So they use it for like the separation. So right here underneath of the footer info, we're going to add an empty div that has the class of footer spacer. Then underneath of there, we're going to have a div that has the class of footer group. And then in there, we're going to have an h5. The h5 is going to have the class of footer group. Actually, it should be underscore title. This one is going to be product. And underneath, we're going to have an anchor tag. This anchor tag is going to have the class of footer group link. And then here we can just say download. And now that we have the basic structure there, we can just duplicate it down below as many times as needed. So this one is Nitro status. And then we can just copy this down. I believe it's only 4. So company, we can do here about, jobs, branding, and newsroom. And this one right here, resources. And this one has 3, 6, 7. So down below, resources, college, support, have blog here, feedback, developers, and finally we have StreamKit. Then for the final one, we have the policies. It's going to be the same deal here. So let me just copy this. So policies, we have terms. Privacy. Cookies. Cookie settings. Then we have guidelines. Then we have acknowledgements. And moderation. Licenses. License. Oh, there's no N in there. And it goes right there. And yeah, that's pretty much it for that one as well. So still within this row container, we are now going to go ahead and add in a div, and this one is going to be for the divider. So footer divider, like so. And this is just going to be the blue line that we have right here. And finally, we just need the logo once more, and then the button right there. So here I'm going to go underneath, And I'm going to give this a class of, well, couldn't really think of a name, so footer mince for miscellaneous, and row and container as well. So it's going to be the same deal as we did before with the nav logo. Where is it? Nav logo right here. And then we can just go ahead and paste it in here. And then we can go ahead and minimize this. So now we have the nav logo. Now, even though it's just the footer, like it's basically the same thing. I'm not even going to bother with like changing it since we're really not going to be doing much with it. But if you were actually to like select this in a real project or for some other reason, then obviously you would do like footer, whatever, logo, image, and whatnot. And then finally, the other anchor tag is going to be btn, btn small, and btn brand. I'm missing one hyphen here. And then we can just say open Discord, like so. And yeah, it looks like that's pretty much all it. So let's go ahead and go back inside of the footer parcel. And let's lay out all the markup that is going to make this work. So here, we're going to select the footer. We're going to add a background color, which is going to be the var dark color. So now everything is visible. Then the padding top is going to be a rem, and the padding bottom is going to be 6.4 rem. Then let's select the info. And here we're going to do a grid column, and we're going to span it by 3. Then I'm going to add a margin bottom for separation of 5.6 rem, like so. Then I'm going to select the title that is inside of it. Font size is going to be 3.2 rem. Text transform, set to uppercase. And then the color is going to be the var brand color. So that's looking good. Now for the languages. Let's not forget. Here the margin block. So the margin that is going to be top and bottom. This is going to be 2.4. And then display will be set to flex right there. So they're going to be side by side. I want to now align them properly. Line items to the center. And then the font size here is going to be 1.4 rem. Now I'm going to select the image that is inside of the languages, and this is going to be the little flag. And what I'm going to do is make it smaller, so the width is going to be 2.4 rem. And then I'm going to select the span, and the span is going to have a margin inline, come on, inline, and this is going to be 0.8 rem, like so. And it's going to give us some separation there. And this is actually clickable, so maybe we should just give it a cursor of pointer. So right here, cursor, pointer. Yeah, so that's better. So now we're going to go ahead and select all of the socials, we're going to go outside of the languages, still within this info container. And socials, the font size here is going to be 2.4. And then the margin right, 2.4 as well. So that's starting to take shape. Then what we are going to do now is select the spacer. Since we don't want to see it on the smaller screens, this is going to be outside of the info container there, still within the main footer block. And we're now going to select the spacer, set the display to be none. And now we're going to select the group. So group, footer group, and then grid column. I want it to span 2, like so. Then I'm going to give it a margin bottom of 4 rem. And then the line height for everything in it is going to be 2.4. Now I'm going to select the title. And the title is going to have a padding top of 0.8 rem. The font size is going to be set to inherit so that it inherits the font size from the parent. And then what I'm going to do is change the color to be the brand color. And the font weight is going to be 400. Now I'm going to select the link. Display is going to be set to block so that it stretches all across. And then the margin top is going to be 0.8 rem. Like so. So let's add a hover effect as well. So and hover. And here we're going to say that the text decoration is going to be set to underline as well. It's just a basic hover effect, as you can see. Now we're going to select the divider. So for this, we have to go outside of this footer group block. So and footer divider. And here we're going to basically span this from the start all the way to the end. So we're going to say grid column, start at 1, and span all the way across to the end. The height is going to be 1 pixel. Then the background color is going to be the brand color, var brand color. And the margin bottom is going to be 3.2 rem. So let's take a look at that right there. And now for the footer miscellaneous, we're going to do a display of flex, align the items to the center, and justify the content space between. And it looks pretty good. Actually, I don't even think we need the row over here. Where is it? Right here. Because the row just had a gap, so it's not going to make a difference there. So yeah, we're almost there. All we have to do now is just add the media queries for the tablet view. And the tablet view as well as the larger screens is going to be the same layout basically, so we don't have to do a lot here. So here, we're going to paste in the breakpoint, and we're going to say info. This one, grid row end. We want it to span 2 because we want the additional room there. Else the other thing, for example, over here, it's just going to overflow to this portion right over here. And then the spacer is going to be somewhere in here. And yeah, so now I'm going to select the spacer. And this is going to have a display of block. And then grid column. I want it to span 1. And this is basically what I'm saying, that it's going to look messed up because right now it's ending right about here. It's not spanning all the way to the bottom. So for that, we have to say grid row span 2. So now it's going to span all the way to the bottom and everything is going to line up properly. And let me just double check, but I'm pretty sure we're like done. So let me just go on the large view over here. Everything looks pretty good. Inspect it. Let me just resize the window. Everything looks good right here. Mobile view. Everything looks good right there as far as the tablet. And everything looks good here for the main view. So let me just test the navigation here. Once more. This works. We click outside of it. It works. And if we try to scroll, it doesn't scroll. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for this tutorial. I hope you guys found it useful. And if you did, make sure you like the video, leave a comment down below. And if you still haven't subscribed, subscribe for more videos like this one. I'll catch you guys in the next one.